This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
A really cool aspect of making the podcast too is just, we were talking about this right before we were recording also, that just to watch it kind of change, like as we slowly make improvements, and like now we have this beginning section, like a regular podcast where they kind of talk about what they're going to do, they introduce themselves, do corrections from last week, or like listener mail section.
I remember when we first started, I had a couple of friends be like, so you just start talking about it? And I'm like, well, yeah, what else would you do?
Yeah, I was more nervous, but Seth had it right. We just started.
Well, I mean, I think I just wanted to get our conversations on the record.
Once we had done it like 2 or 3 times, it feels supernatural.
Right. Yeah, but it takes a couple hours to get used to the microphone in your face.
Yeah.
So these are corrections for Chapter 19 and then Chapter 20. Jathesmain?
It's like, I don't remember this character.
Yeah. So, no, an actual username. And he pretty much always jumps on the corrections right away and has a bunch of quality things to say. He may be just as nerdy as we are about this stuff. I guess the only thing was just remembering that the Angreal have a buffer, so it's hard to burn yourself out when you're using them. I think we didn't bring that up again.
Oh, yeah.
You know how we were talking about the balefire weaves, and we were talking about how he had his hands down and then had to bring them up? He said the thin weave of balefire is actually in Fires of Heaven after he fights Robin. He uses that like on the Dark Hounds, so that you're thinking of something different.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember that too, vaguely.
And then corrections for Chapter 20. I had a slip of the tongue where I said, remember I was talking about Ogier and I called them Trollocs.
Oh, whoops.
Whoops. Loyal would be very angry at me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember how Tom gets angry at the boys for talking about death and being reborn?
Uh-huh.
Possibly part of that is because the Dark One has the title Lord of the Grave.
Right.
And so just anything talking about like resurrection or bodies coming back.
I think I'm still kind of on this. I think part of what got me used to the idea of sitting around and talking and recording ourselves is that we can go back and edit out like all so we don't actually have to know what we're going to say next.
Yeah.
There's like some of these long awkward pauses sometimes where, or, you know, it'll take us like a couple of minutes to find some information that we needed or something.
Yeah, and we just don't worry about it
just
because I just
seems
cut it right
like we
out.
have this all on hand, but
we're much more competent in the final episode through editing than it looks like we are. The stuff that I miss is a small fraction of the mistakes that we make.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's a mixture of us knowing what we're talking about and us fixing it later.
I mean, half the time I've got the Wheel of Time wiki open on the side while I'm going through these, and I'll like be like, nope, that was wrong, cutting that sentence out. Like, or like we'll be like, or was it blah? And it won't be. I only put the correct speculation in there.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's it for corrections. I didn't really have as many as I thought.
Yep.
Do you want to jump right into Chapter 22?
Yeah, I think we just...
Yeah, so this is like a 5-page chapter. It's almost a prologue to the next chapter. So I think we just want to jump through it really quick.
I didn't even underline anything in the book.
It's like an ellipses to the next chapter. Really.
Yeah.
It's like a prologue. The chapter is Chapter 22, A Path Chosen.
Mm-hmm. The Tree and the Moon. So at the opening of this chapter, Perrin wakes up covered in cedar needles and branches. I noticed he must have tried to bury himself in the night because he's missing a cloak and he's wet and freezing cold.
How cold do you think it is?
Well, okay. If Beltane is a solstice festival, an equinox festival? I don't know. Whatever. Yeah. Springtime festival, like the beginning of the warm months. So I figure it's like March, April, somewhere. Sure. Around this time, and it's colder than usual.
But I don't think it's below freezing.
No.
So I would guess maybe it's in the 40s at night, maybe up to the 50s now that he's up and moving around.
Something like that. If the wind gets whipping, it could be pretty harsh.
Yeah, wind chill factor can really...
Yeah.
But he should be in a forest, so that shouldn't be that bad. And he's wearing wool, which can keep you warm even when you're wet.
That's true.
He cannot be enjoying. And he's a big dude. He's got a lot of muscle, he's got that whole cube square law. Surface area to volume.
Oh.
So the idea that like because he's so big and stocky, he has way more volume with only a little more surface area, so he like holds on to heat better. So like a big stocky dude can like
Makes sense.
stay warmer in the winter better than someone who's like thin.
Yeah, the more muscle you've got, the more heat you create.
Exactly.
And we know Perrin's pretty jacked already.
I mean, blacksmith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he sort of wakes up frantically and like grabs his axe and looks around. It looks like he crawled up on the other shore, tried to bury himself in some like pine needles and foliage and stuff to stay warm, and just like
almost not. Yeah, totally
passed
unconsciously. I mean, after all the swimming, he just exhausted himself beyond his ability to stay awake.
Yeah.
His body just gave out. I don't know if you've ever been that tired. I assume you have.
Yeah,
where you
sure.
just like you cannot physically stay awake, and it's almost like someone who's drunk themselves into unconsciousness. Like you can shake them and they won't wake up. And if you've ever been that tired, where it's not just because you've been drunk, it's because like you're actually that tired that you cannot wake up physically
or just move.
Right. Yeah.
It becomes an incredible effort.
Right.
I figure that's what we were talking about earlier, kind of the effect of the icy water on his muscles.
Sure. Oh, yeah, the icy water. How cold do you think the water is? It must be just about freezing, because it's...
I would think so.
Mountain melt, snow melt runoff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember when I was doing the PCT, just like trying to take water out of a stream, you have to dip your hand in the bottle in. It would be like by the time the bottle was full, I'd have to like take a break and like breathe on my hand. I'm shaking my fist around to demonstrate to Seth, like to try to like flex my hand, and because it hurts.
Yeah.
It's painful.
Yeah.
To dip your hand in there, even though it's it's like 35-degree water or whatever.
Well,
probably
it's all about the rate of heat transfer, right? It's not just that it's cold, it's also that it sucks the heat right out of you.
Yeah.
Especially the moving water. So he heads downriver, trying to look for Egwene, because he figures he's going to be a stronger swimmer than she is.
Yeah.
And he finds her. But I just had one. Doesn't Egwene get pulled by Bella? And wouldn't Bella be a stronger swimmer than Perrin?
I'm sure she would be.
So wouldn't Egwene be upriver?
Maybe, maybe not. His eyes followed the strong flow of the Arenelle downriver. He was a stronger swimmer than Egwene. If she had made it across, not if, the place where she had made it across would be downriver. He drummed the ground with his fingers, weighing, considering. His decision made, he wasted no time in picking up his axe and setting off down the river. He covered several miles that way. In spurts, he's like darting between trees. And then he sees Bella's hoofprints.
Yeah. I just had that thought of like, why are they downriver? They should be upriver. But I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe the two of them, maybe the horse has more surface area and gets swept further downriver.
Yeah, or they just went with the current for a while.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I was trying to escape, that's what I would do. I wouldn't just cross the river and then run. I would stay in the river or get close to the other side and just let the water push me.
And you could always be like waiting for the river to curve so you could like, get up on a shore. Mm-hmm. That's always easier than trying to swim straight across.
Of course, I'm saying that now, but if I got thrown into 35-degree water, I'd probably be trying to get the hell out as quick as possible.
I was thinking that possibly having Bella there helped keep her warm.
Oh, yeah. And not being fully submerged. Because I'm kind of imagining she did sort of the same thing Perrin did, but Bella doesn't freak out and just lands in the water and starts swimming.
I don't think she's astride the horse. I assume she's swimming next to Bella.
Oh, no, yeah, she does say something like that. She says she like grabbed onto Bella and Bella just pulled her along.
Yeah.
She says something like that.
Yeah. But that means she got to the other side without using much of her own strength. So she was able, instead of sleeping through the night, she was able to start a fire, set up camp.
And she starts a fire with the power.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Surprisingly easy.
Yeah. And then she's never able to do it again.
Yeah. Well, not...
Well, yeah, not in the next few days.
Pages. I was going to say never. I think she starts a lot of fires in this series.
She sets some Reagan on fire.
Yeah. So, and he notices Bella's horse hoof because it's got the double crossbar that Master Luhan puts on there.
Right.
I like that
Which
little
Perrin
detail.
very well may have made himself.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. That could be his own horseshoe.
Yeah. But Master Luhan has a way he likes it done, I think.
Right.
With a extra bar or something like that.
Yeah, double crossbar for added strength. Egwene has a lot of advantages. She's got Bella. She's got the channeling. She didn't have to swim across.
And she's got a big hunk of cheese and crackers.
Yeah, and she prepared well. I think that is one thing we talked about when she was fleeing the two rivers, is she actually had a well-prepared bag, where the boys didn't.
She's the only person that showed up ready.
Exactly. And this is where it comes in handy.
I wonder if that's from having such a tough taskmistress. Her boss, day to day, is Nynaeve. Can you imagine forgetting details if Nynaeve is your boss? Fuck. You're gonna hear it. And I like Egwene in this scene. Perrin sees the hoof print that is clearly like he knows that style.
So he just walks in.
Still grinning, he pushed his way through the interwoven branches, not caring how much noise he made. Abruptly, he stepped into a little clearing under the hemlock and stopped. Behind a small fire, Egwene crouched, her face grim, with a thick branch held like a club and her back against Bella's flank. She's like crouched there ready to knock him out.
Well, and you got to think, like, she just fled from a bunch of Trollocs, and then she's made a little camp under the tree, and all of a sudden she hears crash, 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 crash. Like,
but I like that she's like setting her feet and picking up this stick, like raising it above her head, like ready to.
She's ready to
do something,
to bean some Trollocs in the head.
Yeah,
but
not that it would probably that stick would probably do very much against a Trolloc, but she's gonna swing it. That's Egwene's style.
Totally,
she's gonna try. She's gonna give it everything she has.
Absolutely. She's like, "You should have called out," and he's like, "Yeah, I probably should have."
Yeah. And the next thing I have is Perrin's thought. Here you were worrying about her, and she's done better than you. She's like dry and warm. She's got a little fire going. She's got her horse and her cloak. She's fine. Oh, here's what we were just talking about. Bella got me across, Egwene said, patting the shaggy mare. She headed away from the Trollocs and just towed me along. She paused. I haven't seen anybody else, Perrin. He heard the unspoken question. Regretfully, eyeing the package he was rewrapping, he licked the last crumbs from his fingers before speaking. I've seen no one. She gave him a little cheese and crackers that she still has. I've seen no one but you since last night. No Fades or Trollocs either. At least there's that. Rand has to be all right, Egwene said, quickly adding, they all do. They have to.
He's still the top of her mind.
Yeah.
There's definitely, I think she's struggling with
they love
her
each other.
Yeah.
And love is not necessarily romantic. They have a strong bond.
Nor is it simple.
It's a little, they think of each other in that way.
Right.
But even later, I think they still love each other. They just relationship changes,
as they frequently do.
Yeah.
So they sort of have to figure out which way to go.
Yeah.
And there's sort of this discussion, and I was thinking that his Tavernus may be pulling him out into the forest.
That is exactly what I wrote.
Did you?
Yeah, I'm showing.
Yep.
I almost called you Perrin. I'm showing Seth my notes. Yeah. I just wrote, why is Egwene deferring to Perrin? Which is Egwene doesn't defer to people a lot.
She's been deferring to either Nynaeve or Moraine, and so maybe she really hasn't quite gotten used to being her own boss yet.
Possibly. And there's another thing we can only really speculate about. Perrin decides on this sort of unlikely path because it's unlikely, where he thinks nobody would expect them to walk in a straight line towards Caemlyn, rather than go to Whitebridge.
Yeah, because it's stupid.
And he doesn't really know where he's going.
Yeah, they have like wilderness. Like it's like trying to cross Siberia. It's like it's not a good idea.
And
not like modern day Siberia, like
from
old
memory,
school.
He does a great job because when they run into Elyas in the next chapter, he laughs and he said, if you continued along the way you were going, you would have ended up like 100 miles north or south of Caemlyn. I forget.
North.
But that's actually 100 miles is I mean, I'm not saying it's an amazing job, but
Yeah.
like just from thinking of and he knows that even the map that he's remembering in his mind, the map was inaccurate.
Sure.
So he's just like guessing and hoping to run into people that can help him.
True.
He knows he's headed roughly in the right direction.
The problem is there's nothing between him and the right direction.
And he doesn't realize that.
Yeah.
There's nothing at all.
There's just nothing. Like that's...
Elyas even says you could have continued walking along that line and not seen another human being until you crossed the spine of the world.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't like to run into the Aielmen.
Now, do you think it was just coincidence that he runs into Elyas? Or just Taviran coincidence?
That was a great question. We should probably talk about it next episode.
Right, we
because
should
it
probably
is the next
talk about it
episode.
when he runs into Elyas, but yeah.
But since we're there, that is a good question. And I mean, the wolves would know he's there.
Maybe.
And the wolves don't know the Trollocs are there until they sense Perrin's thoughts.
Right. We need to read that and take notes on it, and
Okay.
we can talk about it then.
Yeah.
Because there's that's a great chapter.
Elyas, next chapter, guys.
Order with Golden Eyes.
Yeah.
Another great character.
Longtooth?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't hear that name until much later, I don't think.
Yeah, well, not till Perrin talks with the wolves on his own. It might be in this book.
It could be.
Yeah, well,
I'm not sure.
we'll find out. Just last thing, the wind from the river was picking up, and then I just like that the chapter ends on wind blowing again. Sort of this change.
This wind is our theme, guys.
Definitely. Really?
I mean, outside of just the beginning of it. Okay. I mean, there's a lot of it. It's like throughout.
Yeah, wind and change.
The wind that shakes the willow.
All right. Well, thanks so much. John, Michael, I am impressed that you are still with us. If you are still with us, that's...
Yeah, I see him.
Yeah.
He's still there. Awesome, man.
Yeah, that's a lot. You lasted through 3 chapters and all of our diversions and ums and uhs. So...
Yeah.
Um,
I think I already said it, but chapter 23 is Wolfbrother.
and what's the chapter heading?
Wolf.
Oh, wolf. Yeah, the wolf. Perfect.
Yeah. So this is right after Perrin and Egwene ran into each other the following morning, like after the flight from Eridal.
Right. Perrin wakes up covered in frost, wanders down the river and runs into Egwene, and she's started a fire.
Yeah. And they, at the end of that chapter, they leave, like they start walking.
And I think Perrin picks a direction, and he sort of becomes the leader.
Yeah. That made me wonder a little bit about what might be going on there. I always want to attribute this kind of thing to the boys' Taviran nature, but I think at this point, Egwene's just scared and confused.
I think they're just both confused and falling back into default gender roles.
Yeah.
And sort of he's just being the leader because that's what he's expected to do, and she's just like letting him do it. And neither one of them really know what they're doing.
Any idea is better than no idea.
Right. And it is a pretty good idea if they had any idea which direction to go. The sort of cutting across country.
So it's Perrin's idea to stay away from the road and the river, basically, and to walk cross country. And there's just nothing out there, or they quickly realize there's no people at all.
No, and not a lot of food either.
Yeah. They get into an argument because Perrin insists that Egwene ride while he walks, and she's like forces him to share. And I highlighted, in stories, leaders seldom flinched, and they were never bullied. But he reflected, they never had to deal with Egwene either.
That's true, but it's also true that Perrin has no idea how to be a leader. Part of being a leader is leading by example, and that means getting up on the horse occasionally. He's very overly protective of Egwene. Instead of like letting her do her walking, he wants to just sit her up on the horse. And she's like, yeah, except then my ass is going to hurt.
Yeah.
It's like, you get up here and take your turn and get your saddle sores while I walk. Because he's like, I'm used to walking. Well, she's just as used to walking as he is.
Yeah. I figure they're both on their feet all day.
Right. It's this just need to protect her that sort of drives her nuts.
Yeah, she obviously resents it.
Right, totally.
From other male characters in the future, too.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of the women are go out of their way to prove that they're independent.
Gawain kind of tries to treat her that way later.
Oh.
But she just rolls her eyes at that point.
Yeah.
Like, another one of these.
She's evolved so far beyond
Yeah.
being a helpless girl at that point that Gawain's attempt to make her one is
Totally.
pathetic.
At that point in the book, she could kill you in your dreams.
Yeah.
She's kind of a badass.
What does he get? Like a scrawny little rabbit?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, hey, can you start that fire again? Get your flint and steel out.
And he comes back to camp and she's trying to start the fire. And he says, I was lucky. Get your flint and steel. We'll eat tonight at least. I don't have a flint, she said slowly. It was in my pocket, but I lost it in the river. Then how? It was so easy back there on the riverbank, Perrin. Just the way Aes Sedai showed me. I just reached out and she gestured as if grasping something. Then let her hand fall with a sigh. I can't find it now. And she can't for the next few nights. But she does try. And Perrin mentions that sometimes she can make the pile of kindling like smoke, but she can't quite get a good hold on it.
Yeah. She can like get a little bit of heat, but she loses it too fast.
Yeah.
For it to actually be flame. I do like, he's like, you can't wish a fire. I'm like, well, you can if you're a channeler.
It's not wishing.
It's not wishing, you're channeling. Yeah.
And, I think that's actually really impressive. And, we know that Egwene becomes a really impressive channeler later on. But the fact that she's, like, with a few lessons from Moraine, she's already able to start a fire. We see in the future that most novices, like, it takes them years in some cases to even get to that point.
The stronger you are, the faster you learn to channel. It's not just that you're more powerful, but you're also able to learn quicker.
Just kind of more talented in general.
Exactly. And because she's so powerful, she's able to pick things up extremely fast.
Yeah.
It's an odd thing because it doesn't have to do with your intelligence or your hard work, but with channeling, the stronger you are, the faster you learn how to channel. That's why Nynaeve, she sees anything once and she picks it up.
Yeah.
Because she's the strongest. So any weave that she sees once, she can get.
Yeah, that's a good point. We see a lot of other characters do that later. Is it Tame? Is with Rand?
Taim, yeah.
Yeah, in the battle where they're attacked by Shadow Spawn outside of Tyr, we were just talking about it, where I was talking about the fingers, and he does the rolling gateway thing.
And Rand copies it.
I think Tame copies Rand.
Oh, that's right.
But he's also a very powerful channeler, and that's a really complicated weave from what we know. Just one gateway is really complicated.
Yeah. But at that point, everyone's pretty leveled up. They're all good channelers and especially like Taim is super powerful. He's very strong. He's probably the strongest channeler. Well, I don't know. Is Logain also?
That's what I was thinking. I think Logain might be close too.
Yeah, but I thought that Taim was almost as strong as Rand. It's always funny seeing a dark friend mow down Trollocs.
But before we fall down in that rabbit hole, the days continue to pass in a really similar way, except they don't find any rabbits in the following days.
They're definitely not getting enough calories.
Yeah. Perrin says they're living off of just whatever wild plants they can find, and he mentions they find a big group of mushrooms, edible mushrooms, at some point, and they're really stoked on that, right. Which just kind of shows how freaking hungry you would have to be stoked on a bunch of raw mushrooms. I don't know if you've ever taken a bite out of a raw mushroom. It just tastes like...
Oh, I don't know. I kind of like it. I eat raw mushrooms all the time.
I feel like they just kind of taste like dirt, which I don't have a problem with, but there's just nothing to them, really.
Yeah, I guess.
If you fry them with a little salt or something, they can be pretty great, but...
I just feel like I get that, a little bit of that umami out just from eating them. That sort of meaty flavor.
I mean, if I didn't eat for 2 days, I'd probably be really stoked on it. Yeah. Just living on salad, basically.
Man, they must, at this point, they're 2 days into the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Because they are heading cross-country in the wrong direction. Don't they run across some ruins or something?
Yeah, Perrin mentions it once. The remains of tall stone ramparts encircled a hilltop. Parts of roofless stone houses stood inside the fallen circle. The forest had long swallowed it. Trees grew right through everything, and spiderwebs of old creeper enveloped the big stone blocks. Another time they came on a stone tower, broken-topped with brown with old moss, leaning on the huge oak whose roots were slowly toppling it.
Did you find any significance in that?
No, it could be anything. There's lots of ruins, and we get to hear Baal Damon talk about this in the next chapter. But those sound like they could be remnants of the edge of Eredal.
Sure, the whatever city.
Yeah, there could have been a small town in a few days.
Because we assume there were a bunch of farms around the city to support it and bring it food. And when the city fell, those farms, and the nation fell, the farms would have also collapsed.
Yeah.
And possibly some little towns and watchtowers and stuff like that. So, this at one point was civilized. Probably, I do like that it was probably Eredal.
Yeah, part of that civilization, or whatever you want to call it,
Country? Nation, yeah.
And they look about as old as the ruins he describes, the way the ruins of Eredal were described, or Shadar Logoth. And shortly after they pass the ruins, Egwene smells smoke. A cook fire, she says. Somebody's roasting dinner. Rabbit. Maybe, Perrin says cautiously. Because at this point they're still thinking, could be rabbit roasting, could be human.
Yeah, they're worried about Trollocs in the forest.
Yeah.
Camping. They're like, human or maybe another Trolloc or whatever they eat. They eat anything.
Yeah.
So, and that's rough when you're super hungry. You smell cooking meat, and your stomach must just go like, "Oh, that smells so good," but your mind goes, "That could be human flesh."
Yeah, that could be my friends.
Yeah, that's like, that's got to be a tough thing.
Just horrifying imagery.
Right? To be totally like have that stomach grumbling hunger for the flesh of your friends.
Yeah.
Ooh, I just creeped myself out.
Wait here, he said softly. She frowned, but he cut her off as she opened her mouth. And be quiet. We don't know who it is yet. She nodded, reluctantly, but she did it. So Perrin creeps up to the fire, to sort of the edge of it, to see who's there.
I noticed at one point he creeps through dappled shadows, and then he runs into Dapple the wolf.
Oh, huh.
I wonder if Robert Jordan just had the word dapple on the mind.
Probably.
Yeah. I also noticed Perrin talks about how he was never able to get the flame in the void like Rand.
Yeah.
I sort of wondered about that. I wonder if maybe like somehow being part wolf prevents him from achieving the flame in the void. Like he can't get to that sort of burning away of emotions.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, he definitely develops a strong ability to focus and concentrate in the future. Like it's part of his dream walking. He doesn't use the flame in the void in the way that Rand does, but that makes me wonder if he's, the flame in the void is just an exercise to reach the void, quote unquote, like feeding your emotions into the flame. There's
the oneness.
Other ways you could achieve that. Yeah. Yeah, right. She has a different name for it.
Yeah.
But that would all be pure speculation. Perrin creeps up to the edge of a small clearing, and beyond lay a campfire, and a lean, sun-browned man was leaning against one of the limbs not far from the flames. There's kind of a long description here. I'm going to go for it. At least he was not a Trolloc, but he was the strangest fellow Perrin had ever seen. For one thing, his clothes all seemed to be made from animal skins, with the fur still on, even his boots and the odd, flat-topped round cap on his head. His cloak was a crazy quilt of rabbit and squirrel. His trousers appeared to be made from the long-haired hide of a brown and white goat. Gathered at the back of his neck with a cord, his graying brown hair hung to his waist. A thick beard fanned across half his chest. A long knife at his belt, almost a sword, and a bow and quiver stood propped against a limb close to hand. I kind of liked that. The way he summed it up at the end, especially with the long knife, because we've learned later that Elyas's wolf name is Longtooth.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
As soon as I saw the knife, I was like, oh right, totally. I remember.
Yeah. I love Elyas. He's a cool guy.
He is a really cool character.
Yeah. He's like, what do we know about him, right? He's a former warder.
Yeah.
Actually, I believe he's a current warder.
I'm pretty sure he's still bonded.
Yes. Do we know which Aes Sedai bonds him? Let me look it up really quick. Elyas was warder to Rena Halfton. She's the sister of the Green Aja.
He does say the White Tower tried to send people to come after him to like retrieve him.
She's actually a pretty decent character. She's one of the sitters in the Rebel Hall. She's one of the 2 young sitters that like gets elected and is too young for her position. That Suan sort of figures out that they're setting them up as puppets.
Oh,
No, she's got quite a bit of backstory to her. Nothing major, but she has like stuff happens to her a lot. She's one of the characters who gets like one of those Aes Sedai that we never really remember.
yeah.
But she like goes through a bunch of stuff. She's like a sitter, and then she gets stripped of it when the tower reunites and gets replaced. And yeah, there's a whole thing. As far as we know, she's still bonded to Elyas the whole time.
Yeah. You done drooling? The man opened one eye and cocked it at Perrin's hiding place. You and your friend might as well sit and have a bite. I haven't seen you eat much over the last couple of days.
He kind of reminds me of like a Davy Crockett type figure.
Yeah,
like,
with the like coonskin cap.
Totally.
He's like wearing a cloak made out of
just animal fur.
yeah, but like rabbits and squirrels. You know how many rabbits and squirrels you would need to make like a good sized cloak? That's a lot. So it must be like a crazy patchwork.
And I imagine Elyas is just out in the woods making his own way, hunting with the wolves.
Yeah, sort of more than half animal at this point, I think. I think Elyas is a little further than Perrin ever really goes. And you can see in this scene, Elyas seems kind of crazy.
Well, he shed civilization, and he's really awkward around people.
Yeah. There's like at one point he like laughs at one of his own jokes and he like rolls around on the ground in the dirt like while he's just like chuckling to himself. Perrin's like, this guy's out of his mind.
But like imagine like a dog that you see kind of happy and laughing and rolling around in the dirt.
Yeah. Yeah, then
Totally.
it's not like crazy behavior.
No.
It's it's like
That's a wolf showing happiness.
yeah. Exactly.
But he's forgotten enough about civilization that he doesn't stop himself from those sort of behaviors occasionally, and that makes him really weird.
Yeah.
And that's sort of he that's when I think he's got more wolf in him than human, really, because he sort of he's still human. He just gave up civilization when he became hunted.
Right. He's perpetually on the run. Well, until nowish.
Is he just on the run? Is that what he's doing?
Yeah. I mean, they chase him out. He describes later when he finds out that there's an Aes Sedai involved in all this. He's like, well, I don't really take with Aes Sedai too well. Perrin is surprised that Elyas was able to hear him at all. For anyone who's read this series, it's not a big surprise because, of course, Elyas can hear much better than even Perrin probably can at this point.
Yeah. I missed that.
Yeah, Perrin's just surprised that he could have heard him.
No, it's a good catch because Elyas has that amplified hearing.
Yeah. So if he knew they were, yeah.
That's also probably how he's watching them, is he's see in the dark. So
And the wolves can watch them too.
Sure.
I'll skip back a little. The man chuckled deep in his throat. Yeah, I've been watching you and that pretty girl. Pushes you around like a bantam rooster, doesn't she? Heard you, mostly. The horse is the only one of you that doesn't trample around loud enough to be heard 5 miles off.
Which is funny because they'll talk about how good they are at stalking rabbits in the woods and how they're really quiet. So Elyas is
Elyas is just messing with them.
I totally think he's messing with them. I think they're really quiet. He's just like, oh, you're super loud. And they're like,
just throwing a jab out there. Yeah.
And also he's got that amplified hearing, so he probably can actually hear them very easily, even when they're not making much sound.
And then Perrin gasped and nearly dropped Elyas' hand. The man's eyes were yellow, like bright, polished gold. Some memory tickled at the back of Perrin's mind, then fled. All he could think of right then was of all the Trollocs' eyes he had seen had been almost black. I wonder what the memory tickle was. But I just liked that we get to look at Perrin's eyes in the future.
Totally.
Basically.
He reacts the same way a bunch of people react to his eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah. When he's like, he gets sick of that, and I'm like, you did the same thing.
Yeah.
You gasped and jumped. The memory that tickles the back of his mind is they remind him of wolf's eyes. He just can't remember what they remind him of.
Oh.
He's like, golden eyes, what do those remind me of? And then later he says, oh, once the wolves come out, he's like, oh, they reminded me of wolf eyes. I noticed Elyas knows a bunch about Aiel here. I assume that's from fighting in the Aiel War.
Yeah, he almost definitely did.
Yeah.
I don't know if he ever directly says so, but I mean, he mentions that the Aiel aren't friendly toward wetlanders, but it seems like he would have been like in his prime because he's an older guy now. He's like late middle age maybe. When he was first bonded, it probably would have been around the time of the Aiel War, 10, 20 years ago.
Did you know Elyas was the warder that trained Lan?
I remember them having some kind of a relationship. Don't they run into each other later?
Yeah. I guess one of the warders who trained Lan. Of course, Lan was trained from cradle by the warriors of Malkier.
Mm-hmm.
When he got to the White Tower, he definitely got some additional training.
Sure, I imagine you have to, no matter how good you are, you have to go through whatever the requirements are. There are requirements.
Didn't Elyas teach Lan about the Flame in the Void?
I don't know about that. Maybe. And it's important because of the introduction to the Wolfbrother talent, really, which Perrin, well, Elyas describes in a second what it's like to realize that you have the talent kind of independently and how the wolves will come to you. But it took him a long time to figure out what was happening. In this scene right now, where Perrin, like, Elyas tells him, it's like, the wolves say you're one of, like, you're a wolf brother too.
Right. They can talk to you.
And it, like, breaks down this barrier right away, where he gets to be super close with wolves. So this kind of accelerates Perrin on a path that he would have traveled anyway. He just gets a boost in the beginning here. Yeah, by spending this time with Elyas and the wolves.
He has a guide.
Right.
Elyas had to figure it out himself. Perrin has a guide along the path, not just the wolves, but he has a person.
Yeah. Moraine is to Egwene as Elyas is to Perrin.
As Modian is to Rand?
Yeah, I think so.
Or would I go
Who else would have taught him how to channel, you know?
Lewis Theron.
Yeah, that's possible.
That's a very complex character.
Himself?
Right. His previous life, I guess. I don't know. We get to meet the four wolves of the sort of pack. We got Dapple, Burn, Hopper, and Wind. The only one who really shows up again is Hopper.
Not Dapple?
So, there's definitely this whole scene where these four wolves are around.
Yeah.
But at the end of this scene, I think Dapple dies. Or no, she's wounded by the crows. But the only one we see again, as far as I can tell, is Hopper.
Okay.
After this sort of set of chapters.
Well, Hopper's like
Hopper's
bigger
huge.
character than Elyas.
Right, yeah, totally. Absolutely. I would say Hopper's more important than Elyas in terms of Perrin's
And I read ahead
journey.
a bunch this week. And speaking of Perrin's little boost here, tonight, like the night when he goes to sleep tonight, he never has a dream shard dream again. And I mean, you have recently read through this too. And he says he'll be having a dream, like totally normal dreams, and there'll just be a wolf sitting in the background somewhere, or usually I think he says with the wolf's back to Perrin. Mm-hmm. So the wolf is like looking out. They're guarding him while he sleeps.
Yeah.
Literally. And he describes that.
Yeah.
So we talked about that. I don't know if was our last time, but we were talking about the dreams and like how they end for each of the boys.
Right.
And it's tonight.
Tonight for Perrin. Yeah. Yeah. No, he makes this bond now. He meets these wolves, and
yeah, I
really think this is the first time he's face to face with a wolf.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in any like kind of close quarters.
Right.
And I forgot to mention, but Perrin does mention while it's just him and Egwene walking, like in his mind, that he had a few of the Ishmael dreams. But all he says, he doesn't describe them in any detail. He says something like, he kept his own counsel even when he woke sweating and shivering in the dark. And that's all he's
being pursued by Ishmael, by Baalzamon.
Yeah.
And I think that because he's in the forest, Baalzamon can't identify where he is. There's no identifying marks in his dreams. And so by traveling through the forest, Baalzamon is trying to use what he's thinking about to find where he is, but like trees are trees.
Yeah.
And so part of the reason why I think they're safe and in the forest is that Baalzamon can't track him down based on his dreams. Unlike when they were in Shadar Logoth, when he was watching Rand's dreams, and he was like, I know exactly where you are because I can see So yeah, they settle down around the campfire and start basically having conversation.
Yeah.
And Elyas reveals a few things.
Elyas just watches them eat and says, when they're done eating, "What are you doing out here? There isn't a house inside of 50 miles in any direction." "We're going to Caemlyn," Egwene said. "Perhaps you could." Her eyebrows lifted coolly as Elyas threw back his head and roared with laughter. Perrin stared at him, a rabbit leg raised half to his mouth. "Caemlyn," Elyas wheezed when he could talk again. "The path you're following, the line you've taken the last 2 days, you'll pass 100 miles or more north of Caemlyn." "We were going to ask directions," Egwene said defensively. "We just haven't found any villages or farms yet." "And none you will," Elyas said, chuckling. "The way you're going, you can travel all the way to the spine of the world without seeing another human." This is where he starts talking about Aiel. "Of course, if you manage to climb the spine, and it can be done in some places, you could find people in the Aiel waste, but you wouldn't like it there. You'd broil by day and freeze by night, and die of thirst any time. It takes an Aielman to find water in the waste, and they don't like strangers much. No, not much, I'd say." He set off onto another, more furious burst of laughter, this time actually rolling on the ground. "Not much at all," he managed. So he's just, these poor kids are sitting there with this crazy person in the woods.
I can see Perrin with the food like halfway to his mouth, like grease dripping down, just like
This guy's just rolling around, holding his sides, laughing, rolling around in the dirt.
Oh, man.
It's a good scene. Perrin shifted uneasily. "Are we eating with a madman?" Oh man, there's just so much here. I just want to read all of it. And then Egwene's like, "Well, maybe you should show us the way then." And he says, "I don't go anywhere near cities ever. So too bad." He was like, "I had to feed you, though." And Egwene says, "Well, maybe you could just point us in the direction." And Elyas says, "Don't move. My friends are coming to join us."
This is the cool part when the wolves pop out. Because this is when really we find out, they talk about he talks about how long it's been since wolves have run with men.
Yeah, there's a whole long exchange where he kind of explains a lot of what we know about the Wolfbrother talent right in the scene. And you were right, like the next paragraph, Perrin's like, "Yellow eyes," Perrin thought, just like Elyas's eyes, when he looks at the wolves as they approach the fire. And Egwene asks if they're tame, like if they're pets.
Yeah, no, wolves don't tame, girl.
And Elyas just snorts at her.
I like the even less than men do.
Yeah.
Which implies that men tame pretty easily. Which is true. We see a lot of...
Oh, I thought he was kind of saying that men tame poorly.
Well, poorly, but wolves tame even more poorly.
Yeah.
The men tame easier than wolves, even if that's still not very good.
Perrin says, "Well, how do you talk to them?" And Elyas says, "Well, it's not really talking." And he goes into explaining how the feelings and smells and images works.
I think the real reason Elyas approaches them is because he would have let them starve if the wolves didn't say Perrin could speak to them.
Yeah, probably. So it's really Dapple.
Yeah.
She wants to take care of them.
Absolutely.
To take care of Perrin. They couldn't really care less about Egwene.
Right. Yeah, no, she just comes along
he sort of points out.
But I think the whole reason that they even approach them, because Elyas isn't really interested. He's like, anyone else I would have just let pass by.
Yeah, and he doesn't say, "I noticed you." He says, Dapple says, "You're one of them."
Right.
When he's explaining what Wolfbrothers are.
Well, because Elyas and Perrin can never talk mind to mind. It doesn't work that way.
That's right. Yeah, we never see them communicate mind
directly.
to mind.
Yeah. And they sort of can communicate through the wolves.
Yeah, I feel like they pass messages at some point.
Right. But no, there's definitely no direct communication. I like that the whole pack has sort of a species memory.
Yeah.
A pack memory. The individuals sort of have... I mean, I guess if you just live and die and always remember being in Tel Riyadh, always being in the world of dreams, the way the wolves do, you never really lose your memory entirely because you're just constantly being reborn.
Yeah. He says, "Wolves remember things differently from the way people do. Every wolf remembers the history of all wolves, or at least the shape of it. They remember running down prey side by side with men, but it was so long ago that it's more like the shadow of a shadow than a memory."
And I just wonder, it's not necessarily that they all remember what the others remember. It's the fact that at some point in ancient history, many, many rebirths ago, the wolf ran with man.
And the Wolfbrother talent was common, or
yeah, more common anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Egwene asks, "Can you teach us to talk to them?" And Elyas snorts at her again. "It can't be taught. Some can do it, some can't. They say he can." He pointed at Perrin. Perrin looked at Elias's finger as if it were a knife. He really is a madman. The wolves were staring at him again. He shifted uncomfortably. "You say you're going to Caemlyn," Elyas said, "but that still doesn't explain what you're doing out here, days from anywhere." And this is where he tries to get them to answer his question. And Egwene gives him this long line of bullshit, which he patiently waits through. Like, he lets her tell the whole story.
He's like,
And then he says, "That was a good story. Like, there's only a few things wrong with it, but..." I forget which one it is, Burn or Dapple or someone. He says, "But so-and-so is telling me that that whole thing is a crock of shit. So do you want to tell me the real story now?"
Dapple, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and I think he says, "While you were telling that story, Dapple said she smelled shadow spawn in your mind."
Well, because Perrin's thinking about the Trollocs and stuff like that as she's telling the story.
Yeah, because she's avoiding telling what actually happened.
I think that, they don't sound right. They're not Saldean.
Yeah.
They're not coming from the right direction. Like, there's just so many reasons why that thing's wrong.
And then he basically says, "If I find out you're dark friends, like, it would be a real shame because I hate feeding people before I kill them." Perrin tells something close to the actual story.
I mean, pretty much the entire story.
Yeah.
Yeah. He leaves out a few things, but...
I forget which details he leaves out, but...
Yeah. I was just thinking, Elyas must also know Moraine, too.
Probably ran into her at some point.
Just because Perrin tells the story, and I'm sure says Moraine in Lan's name. And so, if I assume Elyas knows who they are, we know he trained Lan, and if he trained Lan, I would assume he knows who Lan was bonded to.
Yeah. We only see, like, the beginning couple sentences that Perrin says, and then it says, like, basically he told the story. And then it cuts to, "And if she doesn't find us in Caemlyn, we'll go on to Tar Valon. We don't have any choice except to get help from the Aes Sedai." And, man, I really like this part, too. I have so much underlined for this episode. Just cut me off if you need to. Trollocs and Halfmen this far south, Elyas mused. Now that's something to consider. And then he says, "I don't hold with Aes Sedai." This is the part that I really liked. "The Red Aja, those that like hunting men for messing with the One Power. They wanted to gentle me once. I told them to their faces that they were Black Aja. Serve the Dark One, I said, and they didn't like that at all. They couldn't catch me, though, once I got into the forest. But they did try. Yes, they did. Come to that, I doubt any Aes Sedai would take kindly to me after that. I had to kill a couple of warders. Bad business, that. Killing warders. Don't like it."
That's a short story I want to see written.
Oh my god, yeah. I would pay money for that. I would. What a cool story. Just Elias's story.
Elias's story. Like him discovering he can talk to the wolves.
Up until he runs.
Yeah, totally.
And he's probably had to kill people he may have trained, because he's an experienced warder at this point.
Or trained him.
He at least knows them personally.
Right.
That's funny, though. He said that they wanted to gentle him. But he also says it wouldn't have done anything. Right. I just didn't like the idea of it. I guess he's just that kind of personality.
Yeah. I think it may have been... I mean, it's just overzealous Reds, right?
Yeah.
They just cease... Because they don't know... There's all these old talents that are coming back, and they don't really know about them. And they're freaking out thinking that, well, if this person has powers, those powers must be channeling. Because that's the only kind we've encountered.
Oh, and as I was rereading the paragraph I just read aloud... When he says, I told them to their faces that they were Black Aja, he at that point would be able to literally smell it on them. Their association.
Do you think?
Yeah.
I don't think so. You're thinking of the sniffer, Huron, who can smell the evil?
I'm thinking in the same way that the wolves could smell the shadow spawn in Egwene's mind.
I don't know. I don't think they do. I think they're reading Perrin's mind because he's a Wolfbrother.
Oh.
And he's thinking about Trollocs.
Yeah, that makes a shitload more sense. Damn. Well, I liked it.
No, that was a good theory.
Yeah, it just made me wonder if he actually knew if they were.
I think there's a good chance. I mean, we know how many dark friends there are.
Especially amongst the Red Aja.
Right. So,
which is who he's yelling at. But he's also angry, like he might just be yelling that to be offensive.
I think it's just calling them the most offensive thing he possibly can at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, I mean, you get super angry and you just like...
Yeah, you just yell offensive
You're the
things.
most hurtful thing you can possibly say to somebody. And he knows them well enough to know that Black Oddjaw is the one thing that the Aes Sedai never admit.
Yeah. Well, they won't even acknowledge that it's ever existed.
Right.
Oh, and here they are talking about it in the next paragraph. This talking to Wolves, Perrin said uneasily, "It has to do with the power?" "Of course not," Elyas growled. "Wouldn't have worked on me, gentling, but it made me mad, them wanting to try. This is an old thing, boy. Older than Aes Sedai. Older than anybody using the one power. Older than humans. As old as wolves. They don't like that either, Aes Sedai. Old things coming again. I'm not the only one. There are other things, other folk. It makes Aes Sedai nervous. Makes them mutter about ancient barriers weakening. Things are breaking apart, they say. They're afraid the Dark One will get loose as what?"
I wonder if these old talents are at all related to the weakening of the Dark One's prison. Or if it's just that the pattern demands that these talents come back, and so they're coming back.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I agree. But I had that thought where I was like, barriers weakening. Maybe somehow the old talents and the Dark One breaking through the seals are related?
I mean, I just don't see how they're related to the Dark One.
If only that the pattern has to respond to him breaking free.
Could that seems possible. The pattern had to level up the players on the light side because, you know, this isn't like the War of the Shadow where they were fully leveled up. They can't even travel.
We need some Wolfbrothers. We need some Soothsayers. We need some, strong channelers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Rand needs those things. But I love that quote about the ancient barriers weakening. There's so much to think about there.
Yeah, me too. And we do see other old talents coming back, like the Sniffer talent, the Soothsayer talent.
Yep. Doomsayer, maybe?
Doomsayer, was that? Right?
Well, I guess that's what the Shan Chan call it, is the Doomsayer.
Is that her title or her name of her talent? What is the name? Does her talent have a name?
Just like reading the pattern, I think, is what... I like how Perrin was like, we've been followed by everything but dark friends. And I'm like, yeah, except Fane's a dark friend.
Yeah, you are being followed by dark friends.
That's the crazy thing about dark friends, is they're there, you just don't know it. The Shadow Spawn are very easy to identify and fight against, but not so much when you're dealing with dark friends.
Yeah.
There's no easy way to identify them until Rand gets the power to look into their eyes. When Rand is able to see the dark friends by looking like way after the veins of gold.
That's super late in the series.
That's just like right before the last battle.
I forgot about that.
And then I like how Perrin's like, I can't talk to wolves, and Hopper's like, I heard that.
One of the wolves, Hopper, he thought, looked at him and seemed to grin. He wondered how he had put a name to him. That's just not even cryptic. He's like already there. Totally. He just hasn't accepted it yet.
They can certainly hear him. I think he's having a little more trouble hearing them.
Yeah. And Elyas says, "Why don't you stay with me? Like, what could be safer than that? Like, if you're worried about dark friends and shadow spawn." And he says something like, "Going to a city is like the worst place to avoid that kind of thing."
Right.
It's like you'll be surrounded by dark friends.
He's right about that.
And he talks about the wolves' hatred for shadow spawn. I've seen a pack pull down one of the Elyas too. They lost half the pack, but they wouldn't give up once they had it sent.
So he's offering protection there.
Yeah,
but I don't think it's enough. I don't think even a pack of wolves would be able to protect Perrin.
No, not from that many Trollocs.
No.
They eventually decide to walk with Elyas to get them closer to Caemlyn. Elyas grunted. Dapple said that's what you decide. And then I just have like the last paragraph of the chapter.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I had is he uses a phrase, play the goat, and I didn't know what that meant, so I looked it up, and it popped up on Urban Dictionary. To behave comically or playfully, often to amuse others.
I had never heard it before.
No, me neither.
I just thought it was made up.
Me too. I'm not sure if that's what it's supposed to be, but playing the goat apparently is playing the fool.
A couple of the young wolves get up from the fire and run off into the night after Dapple kind of locks eyes with them, and they seem to be we know that they're talking, but Perrin doesn't realize this. He just sees them staring at each other, and then a bunch of the young males get up and run off.
Well, Byrne wants nothing to do with them. All he wants to do is hunt Trollocs.
Well, I figure that's when Dapple's giving permission for him to go, like, round up a bunch of the boys to go hunt Trollocs. Because Dapple doesn't leave the fire. She just lets Byrne leave.
No, I thought he was just stalking
Being an
off
ass.
and being sulky.
Oh, well then the last paragraph, Perrin sat wrapped in his own silence. He could feel Byrne leaving, and the scarred male was not the only one. A dozen others, all young males, loped after him. He wanted to believe it was all Elyas playing on his imagination, but he could not. Just before the departing wolves faded from his mind, he felt a thought he knew came from Byrne, as sharp and clear as if it were his own thought. Hatred and the taste of blood. That doesn't necessarily mean but when I read that, I just interpreted it as them going out and looking for Trollocs, because now that they know they're nearby somewhere, I don't know. That's the way I saw it.
Yeah, that's totally. I didn't see it that way, but now that you say it, I like it.
Okay,
but
cool.
My interpretation, which was just that Byrne was pissed and took a bunch of his followers with him, and Dapple was like, "Okay, fine, go." But it makes more sense if she's like, because that
she's like, I interpreted it as her being like, fine, be back in the morning, like that we're leaving.
And I interpreted the hatred as hatred for Perrin, but it would make more sense if it's hatred for the Trollocs.
Yeah. That's what I thought anyway.
No, I think you're entirely right. I like your interpretation better than mine there.
And we know he particularly all wolves hate Trollocs, but
because he got burned by the Trollocs.
Yeah, there's another story I'd like to see. How did that happen? Oh
man, I think you could do just the wolves. Like, that would be a cool, like, little side story with, like, from the wolves' perspective, like, from, like, Hopper's perspective.
Oh, yeah, that would be super cool. You could do so much fun stuff with that. Recently, I think I mentioned to you, I read Patrick Rothfuss's, I read the Name of the Wind, the 2 books.
Sure.
But then there's the third.
It's almost a short story.
Yeah.
Or is it a full? No, it's a full book.
Yeah, it's like 200 pages or something.
Yeah.
It was really good. The Slow Regard of
Silent Things, yeah.
Something like that. The Slow Regard of Silent Things. I really liked that book because it's from the perspective of a crazy person, and the main character, the girl is like, she's lost her mind doing magic.
Ori,
that's it.
Yeah.
And just the cool way that watch her see the world, like to see the world through her crazy eyes and the way she thinks of everything, and how it was a really strange book. Also, she's the only character in the entire fucking book.
Yeah, it's great. I remember.
How many books have you read that only have one character?
Honestly, I remember more about that book than I do about his other 2. I think it's a stronger book than the other 2 combined.
It was really interesting.
Yeah.
You could probably read it as a standalone, even, really. I found it very interesting.
I think it would, better as a standalone, almost.
It would be even more bizarre as a standalone, but that's what makes it good. It's so strange.
Patrick Rothfuss is a master of words. He's not a great storyteller.
Interesting. I think I know what you mean.
Not that he's a terrible storyteller, but I couldn't tell you what happens in his books, like, plot-wise. Like, I have no idea. Like, I remember the characters, I remember the words, I remember the settings, but the plot, I don't know.
Yeah, I think what really struck me most about his writing is kind of along the same line, is just that the way he describes things like a quiet room. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That there's just like an art to the way he's doing it. There's an art to his writing that.
He's writing poetry and prose. It's brilliant. And I love it.
And that's why I think Ori's book, The Slow Regard of Silent Things, was actually the best of the 3.
Right, because
and the other 2 were great. Right, don't get me wrong.
Because I think what he does is he drops plot and focuses entirely on descriptive, imaginative language and images.
It's just like I can't remember how many days, but the whole book is like 3 days or something like that, and it's about a crazy girl that lives in the sewers underneath where the main character of the actual series lives. And that's the whole book.
The prettiest thing I've ever read.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Well, it's been a while since I read it when it first came out, but I've only read it once.
Get on it, Patrick Rothfuss, for that third book. Just kidding. Thank you for what you've done.
I know, I'm not kidding. Get your ass in gear.
Demand. New book.
Right. You and George R. R. Martin need to, like, have, like, a nun standing over you with a ruler being like, work harder. Whoopsh. So, what beer are we drinking?
Picked up Whitmer's Hef, which is one of my favorites. Just kind of like an easy go-to that a lot of places have, that I know is good. One of the better known ones, I guess.
Yeah, well, Whitmer was one of the original craft brewers here in Portland.
Yeah, I'd heard they've been around a while.
Yeah, they sort of started a lot of... They're one of the reasons there's a craft brewing scene in Portland.
Cool.
And they're huge supporters of the local homebrew scene as well. They do a lot to support the OBC club that I go to occasionally. And
Yeah, you were going a lot for a while there.
I was. Well, again, when I was brewing more, I wanted to show off and get feedback and stuff like that. Now I just drink the beer you bring over.
Yeah, Whitmer Hef, good go-to.
Yeah.
I also picked up, that's called Yellow Wolf IPA or something like that.
Right. Well, since we're actually doing the Wolfbrother this week,
That's why I was like, I'll get it again because it's appropriate.
And it was good. It was good. It was potent. We decided not to start with that one tonight because made last time a little hard.
This is Alameda. I just ran to the fridge and checked. Alameda Brewers.
So since last week, we have continued to get patrons. So I wanted to just say thank you to those people who have continued to support us or started to support us since last week. Why is this the hardest part?
What's that?
Looking at people's names and saying thank you. I always feel really awkward doing it.
Oh.
I don't know how to express how thankful I am really well without sounding really corny about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, we probably are going to sound really corny, but whatever. It's freaking awesome. I mean, like we just got to the point where basically this costs us $0 a month to do now, right? Approximately.
Yeah, pretty much.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, depending on whether you want to factor in all the snacks.
The beer and potato chips.
But yeah, the hosting fees at least are paid for, and I think there's a little bit extra that'll pay for the mics and the boom arms that we have in a couple months.
Blinking away at that.
Yeah, and then we'd love to, build a space in the basement I'd love to put up some foam and a couple of nice chairs and, maybe help a little with the sound quality and have a permanent setup rather than taking it up and putting it down for every podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it would be pretty simple.
Well, now's the time to get furniture out in Portland. There is so much stuff just sitting on the streets. I've been thinking about that. I saw some chairs that I almost grabbed. We may want to check out.
Go cruising one day.
Right now. So we can grab a couple of nice chairs to sit in and start the basement studio.
Yeah, well.
Because, the price is right.
Man, and we were just lamenting to our good friend John, who's been listening to us for the second week in a row through Discord, is one of our people who's donating to us through Patreon. But we were just kind of saying, like, it's tough when you have a full-time job and a life, and then like doing this, like the more we grow, the more it grows, the more work we're putting into it. It just, I guess it's nice to get recognized by strangers, to have strangers on the internet send us money to do our hobby.
Yeah.
And there's always more that we want to do. It's just time, money, effort.
Right.
mostly money, I guess, really, because if I could quit my job, I would.
See, now you're thinking a little too big, buddy.
Yeah. Well, if anyone wants to donate $1,000 a month, you can pay my rent.
Yeah, and you can be on the podcast anytime.
All the time.
All the time. No, I think mostly I'm just excited to be doing this, and I'm happy to have people listening. I'm still even blown away by that.
Yeah.
People still listen.
Tune in every week. Or a good little solid core group that I see every week show up on Instagram or comments on Reddit.
Well, speaking of which, let me actually thank these people.
Oh, yeah.
I've been staring the names down for a few minutes while we've been going on. We got Jacob Miller, who was one of our donors. He's at the Ashaman level.
Thanks, Jacob.
Thanks. By the way, I love the levels.
Yeah, me too.
I think I'm adding a Caemlyn level.
Would that be the highest?
Yeah, yeah. That was like the old school Aes Sedai Amyrlin.
Yeah.
So.
Or was it an Amyrlin seed and a Tamerlin? Was there a male and a female, or was there? I think there might have been a single leader of Aes Sedai.
I thought there was a single leader of both, but we'll have to check that out. Jeffrey Petrie. I hope I'm saying that right.
Sweet tattoos, man.
Yeah, we love your tattoos. And he's really gone above and beyond and really helped us out. And you have been a support. You've been liking my tweets ever since I first started putting them out there. And I love your tattoos. And really appreciate the support. Hope we can see you next time. You said hello on Discord for a second, but didn't get to stick around.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully you can stick around next time. I'd love to hear from you during the show.
Yeah, for sure.
Here's John Michael again. I'm just going to mention him again because he's back on. So, hi, John Michael.
That's our friend John that I keep referring to.
We got Kelsey Maxwell, which she's from Texas. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kelsey.
Yeah. Dallas, Texas. I used to live in Houston, Texas. So, not exactly Dallas, but I'm familiar with the heat and the storms and the big open space. I miss that a little bit.
Oh, Houston? I have a friend down there somewhere.
In Texas?
Yeah.
That's a little vague.
I just hear the cities down. I've been to Texas once accidentally because I missed a flight.
Austin's a great place too.
I've heard good things.
Dallas is a great place. Houston is a place.
I'll leave it at that.
Ludwig Carlson.
Thanks, Ludwig.
Thank you. And I think that's everybody. So, yeah, I think we got a couple more, and I just wanted to say, again, thank you so much.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Did we shout out the others last week?
Yeah,
Okay.
We got everybody last time, I think.
Cool.
I made little notes, so let me know if I didn't get you.
Yes. Yell at us.
And again, these take me a couple weeks to get out, so it's entirely possible we're recording on July 20th right now. So if you donated before July 20th and I didn't call your name, give me a call.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or your favorite podcast client.